From Michigan City, welcome to a town hall forum on race, justice, community, and policing. I'm Gerard McClendon from Lakeshore Public Television, and tonight we engage you, our at-home audience, as well as our studio audience and our august panelists this evening. Now, our studio audience gets the upside of this event. They get to ask questions after about the midpoint of the event. But for now, I want to introduce this wonderful panel that we have this evening. I've got Kevin McElmurray. He's a professor in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology at Indiana University Northwest. Professor McElmurray earned a PhD from the University of Missouri. His research interests are gender and religion. I have Erica Stallworth, Executive Director of the LaPorte County Juvenile Services Center. She has served in several capacities at the center and holds a JD from Loyola University Chicago School of Law. Stallworth serves on several community boards, including President of the Board of Directors for Family Advocates, and she is a Spelman graduate. John Esper is a LaPorte County prosecuting attorney for the 32nd Judicial Circuit. Esper is a graduate of Elston High School, and he holds a law degree from USC. He has a 30-year career as a prosecuting attorney, and his persistence is proven. Mr. Esper is a Chicago and Boston marathoner. Mayor Ron Meir has served as a mayor of Michigan City since January 2012. Under his tenure, Dunes Plaza is now a destination shopping mall. Construction is near completion on the Warren Building for the Uptown Art District, and a state-of-the-art police station is being built. Mayor Meir has been mayor for 5 years. Wesley Scully is currently employed at Arcelor Middle Steel and has been the active president for the LaPorte County NAACP for 8 years. He's the father of 6 boys and 9 grandchildren. He's coached junior high and high school football for 9 years. So this man definitely has a lot at stake. We appreciate you this evening. Thank you. And Assistant Chief Julie Smith is originally from LaPorte and a graduate of LaPorte High School and the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy. Smith has 26 years of service and is currently Assistant Chief of Police for the LaPorte Police Department. We welcome you all. Please give them a round of applause as we get started this evening. So I want to set the context for this evening. I want you all to relax, and I'm going to go a round robin of questions here first, but I want to look at the former president's commission. President Barack Obama started a commission that suggests that police officers should get to know their communities, that police training needs to go beyond the technical aspects of police work, and that police departments need more resources to implement best practices. So I'm going to start with a police officer. I'm going to start with Assistant Chief Julie Smith. What is your department's role in training officers to not exercise overt bias during traffic stops? Or is bias essential for a police officer?
We address that through our training programs, and we also, through outside training, through law enforcement providers. It's also an open dialogue between the officers and their supervisors and officers and administration. We try to impart upon them that you look at the offense, not the race or gender of the person that's involved. And
is that possible, though, Assistant Chief Julie Smith? Is it possible?
I believe everybody brings their experiences to the table on both sides of that encounter. If they're positive, everything goes well. If they're negative, things may go awry. So we also have to make sure that we prepare our people to recognize that and address it accordingly.
So do you think there is a problem when the police department and the community don't have adequate engagement with one another? So I guess to be more specific, should there be more community forums or more outlets for people to just meet with police officers in an informal basis?
Absolutely. That's where a lot of your community policing comes in. We encourage our officers to get out of their cars, especially with younger people. engage in playing a couple games of basketball, throw the football around, stop where people are out picnicking. All those type of things provide opportunities where people, you're not necessarily conducting business at that point, like giving the traffic stop, but you've got people at a more relaxed encounter where that dialogue can possibly take place and get to know them on a human level, not on a label level.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the mayor, Ron Meir. As a mayor, is it your responsibility, and this is kind of a tough question because I'm going to put you on the spot, do you feel that as mayor, is it your responsibility to ensure that the residents of Michigan City do not have to become subjects of homicide by the hands of a police officer? Do you feel that's your direct responsibility?
I do believe that it's the mayor's responsibility that that your police department act and conduct themselves in the proper manner, and that's why I have a very close working relationship with my police administration. And I think that actually I go beyond that of having a perspective that I doubt anyone else in this room has of for the last 22 years raising 3 African American men in my house that are my sons, and then also having control of 80 plus police officers and the conduct and how they interact with the community. And we've been very active in Michigan City of trying to have that community outreach of where our police department is interacting with our residents, so that not only the time that they see them is when they come into their neighborhood, when they're on patrol or they're being called there, but they're there when nothing's wrong and they're interacting with the young folks as much as possible. I will say though there is some reluctance many times from certain segments of the community to have that relationship, and as I've observed what's went on over the last 24 months in the United States, I've noticed that all sides are saying things, but many times no one's listening to the other side because they're so embedded in their blue lives matter, black lives matter, all lives matter, white lives matter, that they're so, like I say, entrenched in what they're trying to say, they're not hearing what the other folks are saying, and I think that's we're missing that.
Let's talk about empathy. I'm glad you went there because I'm going to Kevin McElmurray, the professor of sociology. The girlfriend of Philando Castile, Diamond Reynolds, who filmed the aftermath of Philando Castile's shooting in the car by the hands of police, asked the former President Barack Obama in a town hall, what do we do to stop this from happening? Obama said this keeps happening because of deep divisions, people not communicating. Why do race, class, and perception, Professor, still cause deep divisions in American society?
Well, that's a big question.
It's a huge question, but we had talked earlier about together alone, so
Absolutely.
you may be able to even blend that question with your research area.
Absolutely, sure. Well, I'll give a crack at it. It is true that despite 60 plus years of dedicated political effort, we still remain a very segregated society. We don't live near one another, we don't shop together, and we certainly don't worship together. In a lot of ways, we exist side by side, but not in communication. And if you ask me how a formula for overcoming that, I don't have one. But that is the reality out there, and we see it reflected in incidents like this, where not only can we not come to an understanding of how these events happen, but we don't even have a common language for talking about the events.
Yeah, most segregated day of the week is Sunday, right?
That's true.
And your research on Together Alone is interesting, that focuses on mega churches. And
That's true.
You may go to a church with 2,000 or 3,000 people, but you don't know anyone in the church.
Right.
And that becomes problematic when people don't even know their neighbors. I want to go to Erica Stallworth. Prior crimes and lengthy juvenile police records are tricky, very tricky. Some young people learn from their first arrest that crime is not their chosen occupation. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. I keep getting caught. Others never learn. What do we do with those who never learn? All right. Are there better ways of monitoring, rehabilitating, or creating non-criminalized citizens? Through juvenile services.
There sure is. What we're doing here locally, actually, we are a JDI community now. which is Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative. And basically what that philosophy does is it looks at the children, and you do a series of assessments to evaluate whether or not they're low risk, high risk, and where they need to be on the spectrum of accountability, because accountability is important. You know, the juvenile system was formulated so that we treat juvenile offenders separately and different than adults.
So a juvenile is what age and under?
They can be, usually we try to get them, 12
Okay.
is when they can come into detention, usually, up to 18 in detention here locally. If they did their offense at 17 and have a birthday, and then they turn 18, they can stay at the juvenile center until that case is disposed of.
So juveniles get a little bit more leeway than adults, right?
And that's purposeful. And that's purposeful because
Is it for second chance purposes or?
it's for rehabilitation, which is what the juvenile system was formulated for.
Okay, so 12-year-old holds a gun to my head. Do they get treated the same as a 12-year-old who shoplifts?
No, they do not. What will happen here, if that was to happen here locally, they would definitely be arrested. They would be brought to the center where they would be given a series of assessments, and most likely this child will get a psychological to find out what underlying issues are present, what services need to be in place. Is detention going to help, or is there a mental health issue going on somewhere? There are lots of different issues, and so with children, we have a duty to make sure that we're exploring all different causes of why they behave the way that they do.
Yeah. John Esper, we're going to lead right into you after her response. You're a marathoner. Marathons are difficult, but what are some of the challenges of being a prosecuting attorney? And then I've got a follow-up.
Well, I don't think the challenges are unique to being a prosecuting attorney. It's the same challenge that everyone faces, whether you're in law enforcement, whether you're in education, whether you're whatever your calling is. And those challenges are to overcome those insidious, subtle biases that exist, whether they're born of our upbringing, born of our experiences, and begin the process of recognizing them when they surface. Listen to others when there is a suggestion that those biases exist. And sometimes those biases are in the form of racial prejudice. And we need to be open-minded to those subtleties in our lives and in our experiences, and always strive to recognize them and to overcome them. If we are ever to join as a community in this truest sense of community.
I'm going to really put you on the spot right now. So, is it easier or more difficult to prosecute when the case involves race?
Depends on what you mean by when the case involves race.
Good point, Begin. That was a good lawyer's answer. So I'm going to come back to you. So what do you mean by that? Because because the case shouldn't involve race, right? The case is just the case.
That's correct. But if the case involves race because it is a crime committed, motivated by hatred, and when that hatred is seated in racism, then as a prosecutor and as a staff of prosecutors, I want them to be energized by that indignity, by that assault upon our community, and take it with the same seriousness that our legislatures have recognized when those crimes have been prescribed.
How do we know when a case is racially motivated or gender motivated? Does it have to be verbal or can it be insinuated? I'm taking that. We're in court now. We're in court.
I think it was a member of the United States Supreme Court, I think it was Justice Stewart, who said on the question of obscenity, I'll know it when I see it. Mm-hmm. It comes in so many subtle forms mm-hmm. that you have to be, one, looking for it, and then two, willing to recognize it and act upon it when you see it. Sometimes it jumps right off of the incident. It jumps right out of the crime at you, and it's unavoidable. There are other times when it simply presents itself in more subtle ways. And much of the racism, quite frankly, that we encounter today, now 2 generations after we had legally overcome, or at least thought we were overcoming, the legal separation of and legal recognition of racism, and that is that it exists under the surface now, and it's there.
It's covert, but it's covert, but the
Exactly.
results are overt.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to you. I want to go to Wesley Scully, NAACP. So when you're considered as deviant in this society, we pretty much all know what that means, even though some of us may act like we don't know what that means. But when you're considered deviant in this society, i.e. black male, what are you talking about, Gerard? Black males aren't deviant, but I'm talking about expectation and perception. Is it the responsibility of the police officer or the approached black male to de-escalate or minimize the emotion of the situation?
I think that responsibility lies on both parties. As a young male, African-American male, we have to be taught, unfortunately, by our parents on how to act.
Isn't that a shame, though?
It's no different than what we had to learn in the 1800s. You know, we had to put ourselves in a position to not to be in harm's way. And as far as taking the side of the police officer, he is a professional, or her, and they have a job to do, and they have to first protect their own life, so they don't know who they're dealing with. And if a young man or a young lady comes out really aggressive, and that police officer has to protect himself.
Right.
Because we live in a society now where it's very dangerous, always have been. But on the other hand, it would, as you get older, like my age, you learn how to de-escalate the situation by simply treating the police officer as a professional.
Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No,
Yeah,
ma'am.
that's it. I mean, if you're at your job and you don't address your supervisor as, what are you doing? What do you want? You know, you respect them because they're your supervisor,
Yeah.
and they control whether you work and get a paycheck.
And they have a taser, pepper spray. They have a billy club. They got a 9mm. They got a Glock.
K9 dogs and the works.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I want to go to Assistant Chief Julie Smith. So, I'm selling DVDs and Lucy cigarettes outside of a store. I do it every day. Everybody in the town knows that I do it. All right. Cigarettes in the carton or in the package are too expensive, but they know that Gerard sells Lucy's. All right. It's illegal to sell Lucy's. It's illegal to sell bootleg DVDs, but I'm doing it every day. So the store owner calls police on me daily. Oh, come on, Gerard, what are you doing? You know you can't be selling these Lucy's. So what is your directive as it pertains to what happened to Eric Garner? All right. So we put Eric Garner near a store in your community selling Lucy's. How do you handle it as a leader? How do you ask your police officers to handle a situation like that? The man was on the ground, Assistant Chief Julie Smith, saying, I can't breathe. And they still had the pressure on him. What do you do with someone selling Lucy's saying, I can't breathe? What do you tell your staff?
At any point when you have a suspect, and keep in mind that sometimes, even though a lot of people don't want to admit it, we do have people that lie to us. But when you have someone in that situation, which we've had in the news over the last year, that is telling you that they're in some sort of medical or physical distress, at some point you have to address that, and you have to do it where the safety of the officers and the person that you're dealing with are maintained. He's saying he can't breathe, then at that point, and the other thing that plays into this is the adrenaline on both parties. Mr. Garner's adrenaline, processing what's happening to him, and the adrenaline of the officers dealing with someone that they think is resisting them. Again, it comes back to training. It comes back to listening for those cues, because we do have to train for in-custody deaths, and fall back on those things. And when you have somebody that We have suspects that say my handcuffs are too tight. Does that mean we take the handcuffs completely off? Absolutely not. But we do have a duty to check that person to make sure that they aren't too tight.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes along that same principle.
Yeah, yeah. It seems as if there's a disconnect at times between the mayor of a city, law enforcement, the judicial system, and the prison system. There seems to be a disconnect. So I want to ask Mayor Ron Meir, have you created an initiative to improve race relations in Michigan City?
Well, I think I have, because we have a very vast outreach now that hadn't happened in some past administrations, of where there's a very close, open dialogue with a variety of organizations, the Ministers Alliance, the NAACP, the Prosecutor's Office, and LaPorte County, Michigan City Police Department work very closely together. And just this last weekend, we had a big community Easter egg hunt, where I would say all segments of the community were out there. It was police officers interacting with the children, with the parents, with grandparents. So we have as best as we can. There's priorities that you're working on, because it's a very complex issue of trying to help your entire community. I've always said that if one part of, just like one part of your body's ailing, it affects the entire body. So if one segment of your community is not doing well, it's going to affect your entire city. So everything we do is towards job creation, which I think eases some of these stresses and things that are out there.
So I want to shift things to perception and expectation. I want to talk with the professor here about a professor at Stanford University. Her name is Dr. Jennifer Eberhardt. She just won the MacArthur Genius Grant Award. And she's done studies that show that darker skinned defendants committing the same offenses in the same states get longer sentences and more death penalty sentences. So, as a professor of religion or sociology or anthropology, what can prosecutors, police officers, citizens, what can we learn from Dr. Eberhardt's studies?
Well, the takeaway lesson is exactly that. Net of all other factors, skin color makes a difference in sentencing in 2017. That message should be hammered home. That message should be made very clear to anybody who would take on the role of an officer of the court in any capacity. I think that what she has shown us is that those kinds of deeply embedded biases that we may have thought were a thing of the past are still very much with us.
John Espar, agree, disagree? What do you think? Because this goes back to the initial question, to find that a darker suspect or a darker defendant gets a longer sentence than someone who's lighter skinned. I mean, that's bordering on prehistoric reptilian behavior, because it shows that as evolved as human beings are, we still can't get past that. Skin color. You say what?
Well, I'm not familiar with the study, so I can't really speak to the study, but it has been said often enough that these deeply embedded biases or prejudices exist, and they exist oftentimes not even in one's active consciousness. So it really highlights the importance of this conversation to continually remind prosecutors and law enforcement and educators and public ministers of the need to be on guard for these insidious vestiges of the past that have no place any longer in our community, but persist.
And even after you prosecute someone, it's out of your hands then. It's up to the judge to sentence.
And the prosecutor, that's correct, but the prosecutor has a say in that process. And prosecutors need to be mindful that the recommendations that they are making to the judge is independent of considerations of these potentials for prejudicial thoughts, and that the recommendations are being made based upon the individual, irrespective of their race, irrespective of their gender or ethnicity or whatever those biases may be or prejudices may be, and your recommendations are made upon the gravity of the offense, the nature and way that offense was carried out, and the history and behavior of the individual behind who's standing before the court.
Okay, I've got a question in the audience shortly, but Attorney Esper, thank you for that. I want to go to Attorney Stallworth for this. So, the people who you serve, predominantly what ethnicity?
It's about half, 50-50, about half African American, half Caucasian.
Okay, and African Americans make up about 13% of the population.
Correct.
Why do you think that is?
Well,
Are black folks just more deviant?
I do not believe so.
You think it's societally based? You think it's just a matter of environment? What do you think is the cause for that?
Well, I guess if I had the answer to that, we wouldn't have these statistics that are showing that African American youth, I guess in LaPorte County, are being, in the last quarter, 4.1 times more likely to be arrested and come to my facility. But what we are doing, I don't know the reason, but what we are doing here locally is that we're studying it. We have a work group on disproportionate minority contact that it consists of the prosecutor, public defender, representatives from the community, and police, law enforcement. And we're looking at why are we getting the statistics, so that maybe we can find out the answer.
Yeah. Let's go to the audience. I want you to state your name and your question.
My name is Vanessa Allen, and I am the president and CEO of the Urban League of Northwest Indiana, and I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight. My question is, based on the demographics of the city, what is the demographic breakdown of the police department, and how many times do you engage in race relations or diversity training?
Are you speaking of Michigan City, ma'am?
Michigan City, LaPorte, but I would ask that you...
I can't speak for Michigan City. For LaPorte, we have a very small African American population. It's primarily Caucasian. I would say the next largest demographic would be Hispanic and then African American. And I'm sorry, what was the remainder of your question?
So the breakdown in the police department?
We have no African American officers. We did have one years ago, and he went to the state police. We have 2 Hispanic officers. We have 2 female officers, myself and another officer, and the rest are Caucasian males.
And the second part of the question was, how many times do you engage in diversity training or race relations professional development?
That's something we try to do each year. As a matter of fact, this year we've already sent officers to 2 different courses at the South Bend Regional Academy on diversity.
Anyone else want to?
Yes, I'll answer
Yes,
that,
Mayor.
Doctor. In Michigan City, of course, our dynamics and of our community are much different than LaPorte City is. And we're talking kind of as a county here tonight, but Michigan City is probably closer to 30% African American. I believe we have around 83 officers. I have to defer to my chief of how many African American officers we have right now. About 10. So it doesn't really reflect the total, but there's many reasons for that. There's a very stringent procedure they go through as far as the hiring process. And when I say that is we really get down to 3 or 4 candidates after we started out with 50, and so it's quite the process to go through, and a lot of African Americans are not applying for the Michigan City Police Department. So it's another issue. If you're starting with 50 applicants and 2 or 3 are minorities, and as you go through, there's, like I say, a pretty stringent test. It could be that you don't pass the agility test, just that you weren't in the proper physical condition, and so you're now eliminated from the process.
There's no quota in Michigan City, is there?
No, there's not. There is a consent decree in regards to our fire department, but that is, which is done very well with that. There is a federal consent decree that's still in place from the mid-'70s
For the fire department?
For the fire
But not
department.
for the police department?
No, it was filed by firefighters. at
Is
the
it
time.
because is there no dissent decree because there maybe are there more applicants for firefighters, or is it the nature of the occupation that sets no decree for police officers?
Well, this was filed by African American firefighters at the time in the mid 70s, and so the federal judge in South Bend is the one that brought down the decree. There was many years that it wasn't enforced, but I can say since I've been mayor over the last 5 years, I believe that we've hired over a dozen African American firefighters and the first woman firefighter in the history of the city.
What do you think about his response to that? Thank you so much. What do you think about his response, the mayor's response to the decree and to the fact that there probably needs to be more African American police officers in Michigan City?
Yeah, that would make a difference. When I came up in this city as a young man, the majority of the police officers that I knew lived in my neighborhood, went to my church. We are schools, their children went to school with me. So there was a personal, close relationship. And when you're dealing with today, with the dissent decree, when I first took over the NAACP as president, we had to challenge that issue, that decree. And he was right, it was about the fire department, but we wanted to carry it over into the police department. Chief Swistak, the mayor and all of us, we sat down in several meetings and we came up with some advertising programs like we had when they had the flyers, it would be all white officers. Then they put African American officers on the picture to try to draw the interest in our people to come out and become a police officer in this city. And he's right, it's hard for the African Americans, especially young black males, to want to become a police officer because of the division in our relationships. They don't trust the police and they feel like they're the enemy. So there's not a thirst or a hunger like it would be for a firefighter.
Let's talk about trust. So, as an NAACP president, what does this mean when Officer Betty Shelby on 60 Minutes, she shoots Terrence Crutcher while he's wandering in the street with his hands up, all right? What do you tell NAACP members and policymakers about disrespect in certain communities? What does the NAACP do when it concerns something like that?
Well, that's an issue that we've been battling for years, hundreds of years. That's what started the NAACP, a massive amount of hangings in 1901 in Springfield, Illinois. And there was no protection by the law. Matter of fact, a lot of the law enforcement was a part of that group. The bottom line is when we're confronted about such a dire situation like that, we try to get to the magistrate to try to figure out a way how we can come together and deal with this issue. Well, when you're dealing with a situation like that and the whole world sees it, it just brings about and reveals the essence on why this country is the way it is, and it's the bottom line is racism. So you have to deal with that.
So, okay, thank you for that, because I want to go to Erica Stallworth on this. So are some juvenile offenders, I'm going to stick to the script because I'm getting upset now. Moderate, Gerard, moderate. Are there some juvenile offenders who just shouldn't be in a free society? Be honest.
You know,
Be honest.
there are some who are antisocial, and no amount of treatment can help or assist.
So what do we do with them, Erica Stallworth?
Well,
Is it a product of bad parenting? Is it a
Some of
product
it's
of a
genetic.
jacked up neighborhood?
it's a combination of many things. You can have the best parents in the world and turn around and be a mass murderer.
Right. So what do we do with these 12, 13, 14
When they're that
year olds who
young?
are trying to crawl through my window?
Well, that's very different than someone that is, are you talking about a violent offender or someone who's,
An offender who, we see it all the time. This offender has 6 gun arrests. This offender has robbed the liquor store 12 times. The society is terrorized by this. So as a tax-paying citizen, don't I have the privilege and right to not have to deal with that person terrorizing
We
my
sure
neighborhood?
do.
So what do juvenile centers do when you have a repeat offender who's getting light sentences?
Well, the first thing you need to do is catch them before they get to that point. So if we had done our job and caught them before they got to the point where they have 6 arrests and they're still doing it, we wouldn't have a kid who's continuing to do that, because we would have intervened and got them services early on.
Let's talk about, and this is open to anyone who wants to answer this question. Why is it so difficult to talk about race and policing? Does anyone want to, is it policy? Is it the fact that we don't have white friends, we don't have black friends, I don't live around people who I consider deviant? Why do we have such a difficult time talking about race? You know, and we see these micro insults all the time. Oh, Gerard, it's like a person won't come out and say, you're not like the rest of the blacks. A person might say, oh, you're so articulate. That's a racist statement, even though the person may not realize that it's a microaggression. You know? Oh, but you don't behave like, I don't behave like who? I listen to hip hop music. What's the difference? So why do we have such a problem with talking about race? That's why we're here, right?
Right.
Let's talk about it.
Can I answer that?
Yes.
I just want to give a quick quote by Professor Joy DeGruy. She's a professor of sociology, and she says that you cannot have unity without justice, and you cannot have justice without the truth, and you cannot tell the truth without courage, because the champions of God cannot win this war as cowards. Okay? The bottom line is, this is an awesome event here, this town hall, because until we deal with it face to face, the separatism just gonna get wider and wider and wider. And it all stems back to racism. Most people don't even know the definition of racism.
Right.
See, racism is a group, not individuals, but groups that goes out for wealth, power, and all your resources.
It's systemic.
It's systemic. Black folk cannot, as a group, do anything to affect the white population that will make a difference where they work, live, go to prison, or anything. But the white population can affect every point of life that black people deal with.
So there's like this cloud of malaise over certain communities to not be able to break out of this matrix of sorts.
Exactly.
So individually, I can do a racist act. Being a black man, I'm a professor. So if I give all my white students low grades just because they're white, that's a racist act, because I have power, privilege, and
As an individual.
As an individual. But that still doesn't affect the systemic racism that has taken place for centuries,
400
right?
plus years.
Let me go to the audience. Yes, state your name and your question, please.
Sure. My name is Jenny Vandenberg, and I'm coming to this as both an educator and a white mom of 2 black children that were adopted at birth. And my first question is for Mrs. Van Buskirk, trying to kind of pull in the educator side of things. What role do you see, and anyone else is free to comment as well, educators and the education system playing in decreasing that racial divide and decreasing racial conflict? Because I really feel like that's where it starts. That's where we break that segregation down and start to get to know one another. So how do you see that as something we can address in education?
We're going to have to get a mic for this person that you're addressing. Is there anyone on the panel that can?
Mr. Doctor,
we're going to
get a mic up there, but I agree with you. Education. The first part is to teach true history of this country. I think that there's a shame that many people are very uncomfortable with talking about, but once we admit that the foundation of the United States of America wasn't totally perfect, and there's been a lot of fault, and we've corrected a lot of that over the last several hundred years, but we have not progressed to where we should. But is the true history, for instance, I believe the entire middle schools in Michigan City, the high schools, should go to DeSable Museum, see the pictures of our history, and it'll change your perspective on things. So that's a start as an educator, is not candy coating what I've seen in some books where it says said some slaves were treated badly. Really? That was in a history book. Some slaves were treated badly. You know, so they got the wrong perspective. And I understand that there's a shame, but the big point is we do have to be comfortable conversating it about race, and we may make a mistake and say something that isn't quite perfect, but we have to have that dialogue, and we have to be able to forgive each other if I say something that you accidentally said, like you're referring to those people. Well, you might be talking about people in a certain neighborhood, not necessarily African Americans. So education is crucial at an early age.
Let me ask you this question. What is your gauge on the textbooks that are written in the United States? What's your gauge?
Well, I can't speak very extensively to that because I'm not a teacher. I'm a school psychologist. So
You have the right, though. You're a school psychologist, and textbooks affect the psychology of children.
Yes.
So what is your gauge on the textbooks?
I definitely think that is a huge issue. I know that there are many things that I have learned as an adult, both before and after I adopted my children, that were things that I was never taught in school, or that the full extent of was never really addressed. And there are so many things I feel like even now that I'm pushing with my children, mainly my son, because my daughter's only 3 and my son is 7 and he has a greater understanding, but just the limit. And, you know, when we talk about, you know, Black historical figures, it's during Black History Month, and it's limited to the same ones that I heard about whenever I was in school.
Right.
And so enriching that in my home is something that we need to do, but I think that's a place that we can start as well in school. And then also, I think, as the mayor stated, kind of bringing groups together as young children, as students, to start those racial discussions so that we see each other as people and not as groups.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your question. You know, this is profound because whenever I've been teaching I'm getting old. I've been teaching 25 years now on the high school level and been a professor for 12 years. And some of the textbooks that I see, you wouldn't think that the children would all have mental issues. You know, anytime you see a history book that states that Black people, Africans who were captured, kidnapped, and brought to North America, when the term slave is used, that's not even an accurate word to use. People aren't slaves. People are enslaved. They're people first. And so it's frustrating when you see half a chapter in a history book, high school, that has a chapter on slavery. I'm like, really? The country was built on slavery. The reason why we have skyscrapers and massive wealth in the United States is because of slavery. And that story doesn't get told in history books. Yes, state your name, please, and your question.
My name is Jada Haynes. My question is, why is it, though, when the high school students get busted at a party for underage drinking, mostly African-American students get taken to jail instead of everyone at the party?
So does anyone want to stay off of that?
I would say in Michigan City, for accuracy, that if there's an underage drinking party and our officers go there, that anyone who's in violation of the law will be treated the same that evening. I don't know what that procedure is. I figure they reach out to the prosecutor's office. They are juveniles in most cases. You know, one of the things when you talk about the police in general is that they are dealing with everything that every other aspect of society is failing to do, whether it's federal government, state government, local government. They're dealing with mental illness, drug addiction, every ill in society. The failure of government, of supporting the education system, supporting that community, even the church itself, who is preaching within their walls but not getting out and doing enough works in their community. And so who do you send to deal with every one of those issues? Why do we have juveniles at a party where just recently, you know, there's 20 or 30 juveniles? Where are those parents? Where are the grandparents? And who do we send to deal with all these ills in society? A police officer. It's very emotional for them. They've got a wife and children in many cases at home, or a husband at home, so it's a lot they're dealing with too. So,
Assistant Police Chief Julie Smith, Wow. Is there training for that? You get to a home, there's a phone call, comes in, there's a ruckus at this house. Parents may be out of town, massive drinking taking place in this home. What does a police officer do? Do you cuff everybody, or do you ask for a parent? Do you lock people? What do you do in that situation where you have underage drinking and you have a disturbance of the peace?
There was a time when keep in mind now, I've been doing this for 26 years. There was a time when in the first part of my career that the officer had a lot of discretion on how to handle those type of situations, as well as catching juveniles out with alcohol. I believe at some point at midway of my career that we all adopted a zero tolerance policy. That being said, that if the officers are responding to that call where you have children of mixed race there, they should all be treated on an equal plane. If it's a zero tolerance policy, then everybody has to be held accountable for their activities. And
do you believe in zero tolerance? When it comes
across the board?
When it comes to certain issues?
Yeah, I do. On certain issues, I do.
Give me an issue, and then I'm going to juvie over here.
You're kind of putting me on the spot.
That's
there.
okay. It could
I
be-
think anytime you endanger someone's life, that's a zero tolerance thing for me. And then that's my personal. Police officers are allowed a lot of latitude and personal discretion on many variety of situations. And so a lot of times you have to know yourself well enough to know what is my personal line of where I'm going to either work with a person or not. And there's a lot of kids do make bad decisions. So you have to either say, I'm going to use this as a teaching moment, or we're going to use the criminal justice system. And that's the beautiful part of my job, that I get to have that discretion, because not everything has to go down the juvenile justice path. It can be a teaching moment.
Are there some situations, Attorney Esper, where you're prosecuting, but you know that this probably should be thrown out of court, or that the offender needs a second chance, even though you're prosecuting? Have you ever been in that situation?
Absolutely. And a prosecutor has to have the good judgment and the wisdom to recognize when those circumstances arrive and utilize the discretionary authority that a prosecutor has to not prematurely brand a young man, whether of color or Caucasian, prematurely brand a young man as a felon.
Is it easier to prosecute a male than a female doing the same offense?
Not anymore.
Really?
Honestly.
The young ladies are rough now?
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
But let's get back to the question though. Is it easier to prosecute a male? Is a male doing the same offense? Does that person's perception appear in the court to be more deviant?
In truth, it's never easy. It's always a heavy responsibility, and every prosecutor needs to understand that they're affecting lives, and they can affect that life for the good, or they can affect that life adversely for the rest of their life. Oftentimes it's a judgment call. Now, we're required to enforce the law, but we also have a responsibility to recognize where there's truly an anomaly in the behavior of a young offender, and to be able to recognize that and structure a disposition that doesn't do more harm than good.
Yeah. Zero tolerance, Erica Starworth, do you believe in it?
I think when it involves a offense where someone there was bodily injury, a gun charge where someone is hurt, a violent offense, but when it comes to drugs or where there's an offense where there is no injury to anyone, then I do not believe in zero tolerance.
School to prison pipeline. Let's talk about this as we're going to be closing shortly. Do any of you on this panel believe that there is a school to prison pipeline to the point where there are some schools that basically teach certain people that they will be in the criminal justice system and eventually in a prison?
Definitely.
I'm coming to you next.
Yeah, there's nationwide trends and articles and studies that when you have student resource officers who are not trained on how to deal with youthful offenders, that it leads to an escalation of the offense. The child gets arrested, gets brought to juvenile detention centers. And we even have it where children are young. I've seen articles where 8-year-olds are being put in handcuffs and arrested for temper tantrums in the classroom. So I think it does definitely lead to the pipeline when you have officers or student resource officers in place that aren't trained on how to deal with young people. So definitely.
You said yes as well.
Definitely.
Are there some schools that are just so horrendous, they're not teaching anything, the parents don't care, and then this 8-year-old, 10 years from now, ends up in the prison system? Do you believe that these schools kind of lead to that ultimate outcome?
NAACP did an intense study on that very subject, and they zeroed in on Texas schools, which they seem to have a lot of juvenile problems with the youth, as young as 8, 6 years old, where they actually get physically arrested, handcuffed, brought to jail. They don't care about the environment that that kid lives in, or whether or not if that kid even had breakfast that morning. But when they speak out or act out, they deem them as a troublemaker. When you get, especially African American male, they get them on medicine before they can even get old enough to make a decision whether they need medicine or not. It doesn't matter. They put them on these mental medicines to try to calm them down. There's really nothing wrong with them. It's just aggression that they need to get out of them. So they put them in this category as troublemaker, from troublemaker to criminal. And once you get the definition of a criminal, which is basically mean all your civil rights is taken and you're basically a slave again, then you're piped into the prison system.
13th Amendment.
13th
right?
Amendment, everybody
Yeah.
need to watch that documentary.
Yeah,
13th Amendment, they should watch that.
Slavery is abolished except for the convicted felon. I'm going back to the studio audience. Yeah, state your name, please, and your question.
My name is Lark Hapke, and I have a question and also just a comment. But the young woman who is a student here at Michigan City High School asked the question about racial bias when it comes to kids being arrested disproportionately. And I don't think that question was answered. I didn't hear an answer that said, other than, well, we think it's probably. I didn't hear if that. My sense is if she asked the question as a student here, she has experienced either firsthand, second, or third hand that is not the case.
So do you believe it's disproportionate?
I would guess it's disproportionate because I think most things are.
Let's ask the panel again. Does anyone on this panel think that arrests are disproportionate?
Well, of course, that's empirical.
I mean,
That's just an empirical fact that minority communities are surveilled at higher rates, they're arrested at higher rates, they're convicted of the similar crimes at higher rates to comparable whites. All of that is just a fact. We should all just accept that as the reality out there. Then the question moving forward is what can we do about it? So yeah, absolutely. The students' observations, anecdotal as they are, no doubt are rooted in reality.
And I guess I think that to have any kind of really authentic conversation, we have to be able to say that, to be willing to get deeper below the surface about what is actually happening here. Now, I was late, so I apologize. You may have covered all that before I got here, but it was just so clear to me that question did not really get answered. And the other comment I'd want to make in general is just, you've already talked about the systemic power factor that is so ingrained in this culture, and obviously in the white culture. And that I continue to, a long time ago, and I don't want to sound presumptuous about that, but circumstances allowed me to realize I always walk through this culture with white skin.
Yes. Thank you.
And just that is a privilege.
Yes. Thank you.
And that it's up to me as a white person who cares deeply about racial justice, it's up to me to address my white brothers and sisters about the systemic unconscious nature of what is being experienced here.
Thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. I need final comments. Mr. Esper, final comments about how we can make the world a better place.
Well, it's going to take work, and there's work to be done. There's a lot of good effort that's being put forward. I was really inspired to hear Mayor Meir mention, or actually Mr. Scully mentioned, the meeting with the mayor, NAACP, Chief Swistek, to talk about ways to recruit members of the minority community into the Michigan City Police Department. Those kinds of steps are positive. There's much work to be done, but those are good beginnings.
Assistant Chief Julie Smith, one thing that police officers can do to make the world a better place here in communities.
Obviously, something that was touched on earlier, we have policing your community. I've always felt that policing isn't something you do to your community, you do with your community. It's very inherent that that's understood on both ends, especially on our end, because we have to take that initiative. And it's a very intimate relationship. I think they have to make that effort to get out there and do that. And the other thing about getting to know each other as people, I have, just as an example, not to take up too much time.
We got about 10 seconds. I can't get to everyone else.
Yeah, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
We have to get to know each other as people and not as a black person, a white person, a male, a female, a Hispanic. The labels have to go. And we have to know each other as people, because we all have families, we all have stake shares in our community.
Yeah, and I wish we could do that.
I wish I was more
Assistant
prolific
Chief.
with my
No, that
talking,
was a
but-
beautiful way to end. I wish we could do that, but you know what, Assistant Chief Julie Smith? I think everyone in here knows that I'm a black man.
But I see more than that when I look at you.
I appreciate
understand
that.
that as your skin color,
It's the
but
suit.
I see
Don't even
deeper
try
than
it.
that.
It's the suit and the hanky. Don't even try that. Hey, we'll have to leave it there. You know, we want to thank everyone for watching the town hall meeting tonight. We want to give a special thanks to NIPSCO, and we want to thank our family of viewers at Lakeshore Public Television. Thank you for watching a town hall on race and community policing, and we want you to continue the conversations at home. You all have a wonderful evening. Have a good night.